Hey, and welcome to Matt and Jess TV. I am Matt Roast here with Jessica Bun Bun and Coco Vanderwolf.
Oh,
Yeah,
hey,
she's
buddy.
hanging out with us as we dive into Slow Horses Season 4, Episode 3 in this reaction and review. I was actually, before this, I was trying to escape a different set of dogs after River Cartwright stole my bicycle slash moped slash whatever that was. That moment was in the trailer, so I knew that was coming. I loved it just as much actually seeing it on the show.
I loved it even more. The whole setup for that, watching River climb out that window, walk across that roof, and be like, peace, and fall right through into a pile of tires, his head in a tire, stealing that bike. It was so good. It was a 10 out of 10, just comedic action sequence. I absolutely loved it.
I think what just makes it all the better is just that how is River still alive? I know we ask this question all the time. Like, this dude should be dead. He should be
Season
fine.
2 should be
Yeah,
dead.
like, this entire episode is a situation where he's basically running away from this group of people who think he's somebody else who was pretending to also be Adam Lockhead, this like Bertrand individual. Like, so there's all these like double personalities going on. He's in another country. He doesn't really have a lot of access to anybody. Like, he was magically saved for a little while over the course of this episode, but now he's back out in the wind again. Like, things are really, really chaotic.
They absolutely are. But before we get into all the chaos of this
Yeah.
episode, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of our other Slow Horses reviews and reactions. We're also covering Only Murders in the Building from
Hmm.
it's really we eaten well here in TV land. So hit that subscribe button and stick with us.
Thank you guys so much. And if you do want to support us further, be sure to join our Patreon, where for $5 a month, you can vote in polls to help us determine what shows to cover there moving forward. We are covering exclusively on Patreon, The Penguin, for those of you who want to check that out. And thank you so much for those of you who have supported us there. It really means the world to us.
Okay, let's get into River because we're already talking about your guy, River.
My guy, my terrible, terrible Slough House spy, River Cartwright.
They're all terrible, but we'll get into that later.
Yeah.
Okay, listen. So when we last saw River, he was being taken by a man who I thought was going to be maybe French intelligence. It
Yeah.
felt like this person wanted to make sure that River was alive, and that was the case. Not that he was French intelligence. He turned out to be a guy named Victor, who was the cousin of someone named Natasha, who is the son of Bertrand slash Adam. There's so many names going on here, right? So they thought that River was him and that
Yeah.
he was Natasha's son. And then when they finally got to him, they were like, oh no, so we got the wrong person. And River gave up a lot of information to them. It was just like, listen, no, I'm MI5. Your son is dead.
Yeah.
And all this other stuff is going on. So, like, what information can you give me? And they weren't able to really give a lot of information, but they did give some. So, one of the things that they gave was that
Mm.
Harkness has a lot of children, and his children are now grown-ups who seem to be working with him on whatever it is that's happening.
Harkness is an interesting villain, and not just because he's played by Hugo Weaving, but it's just also his motives are pretty unclear at this point. But there's a
Yeah,
lot
we've
that's
seen him for like 5 minutes.
yeah, we've barely seen him, and yet it seems as though he is the big bad orchestrating everything behind the scenes. And the question then, of course, comes down to, well, why? Why is this person willing to go through all of this effort that they're gonna have, Bertrand slash Adam Lockhead go all the way out there to try to take out David Cartwright,
Yep.
and then we're adding, Sam Chapman into the mix
Yep.
as well. So what we can sort of say here is that clearly Harkness has some sort of history or connection to MI5, because we're talking a lot about names that have been effectively deaded within this organization.
Mhm.
Like, these names are out there, they're being used. Robert Winters is a great example of this, and he wouldn't know all this sort of stuff unless he has some sort of established history with MI5. So that's sort of a fundamental nature of a lot of this, and it's clearly something that he has plotted out for a long time, because it doesn't seem like Sam Chapman was even at this place in France, like, it was a lot, many, many, many years ago.
Yeah. So what is Harkness's big game here then? Like what is the plan? Because if he's connected to MI5
Yeah.
or like if he's, ex MI5 or if he knows something about David and David's obviously connected to MI5, how did he get his hands on these cold body IDs? Because these IDs are seemingly like real IDs,
Yeah.
but they're created through MI5. So if only MI5 knows about them
Hmm.
and have access to them, then how does this guy have access to them and why is he using them? What is the reason? What do you think, Matt?
I think it is one of your favorite things is the reason. I know how much you love revenge tales.
Oh,
And this
I love revenge so much.
this is to me a fundamental revenge story because it has to be a pretty powerful motive that Harkness is willing to sit on something for a long time
Yep.
and then try to act. And I don't know if it's coincidentally he waited until David was a little longer out of the game or he
Mhm.
thinks he could get the leg up on him at that point,
Maybe
but
he had to wait for all his kids to grow up.
maybe that is the case. He needed his
I mean, he made all these babies and now they're all working for him. So maybe
he
he
had
had to wait.
he had to train his child organization to do whatever
Yeah.
it is that he wants to do,
Yeah.
but he had access to this stuff, so he has a certain amount of knowledge base. I feel like he worked with MI5, and whether he was, an official asset, somebody who was kind of off the books but was still working with them to the extent that like nobody other than maybe David or Sam knew about his involvement. Maybe this is something that, Taverner and all these other people in the deep trenches of MI5 could not even dig up at this point, but maybe they burned him along the way. Maybe this mission
Oh, I'm
ended.
sure they did.
Oh, I'm sure they burned him big time. And I think they must have done something that hurt some other members of his family. Like maybe they killed some other people that could have been in his child organization or something like that. And it's something that he has held on to ever since. But this is not just about, okay, I want to kill David. Because if that was the case, we would just have the incident at David's house. There wouldn't be anything else that's constituting this story. I
Mhm.
think, and this is just a theory. We have not read the books. Please do not spoil the books in the
Okay,
comments.
so for us, this is a tinfoil hat
Yes,
theory. Let's get them on.
yeah, tinfoil hats on here. So I think what's going on here is Harkness wants to take out David, take out Chapman, try his best to make sure that all of this stuff is ended with them. But I think he also wants to ruin them professionally. I think he wants to ruin their reputations. And I think the best way to go about that is what's going on elsewhere in the season so far. Like, the incident at the shopping center, like all of this stuff. He's going to try to pin this on, code names and stuff within MI5 so that the public in Britain start to have distrust for MI5 and they start to think that organization is shady so they don't even trust them anymore. And it's all going to link back to what happened many, many years ago with David. And he's going to be seen as the enemy.
Absolutely. It feels like there's a much bigger personal game in play here. And
Yes.
with it being David, who's been part of this organization forever, who's done a lot of shady things and has covered up a lot of shady things.
Yes.
I think if that's the motivation, it's something where it's like, okay, I'm going to use these IDs created by MI5 and I'm going to make it very public and it's all going to be pinned on somebody who's been part of that organization since time,
Yeah.
that then it's going to make the whole organization look bad and make the public not trust them. It feels like there's a much bigger plan going on than just the shopping center thing and a couple stolen IDs.
Well, yeah. I mean, Slow Horses is a show that I think on paper, on the surface, they like to make it seem like it's fairly straightforward. This happens, then this happens, then this happens, then there's a chase sequence, and River's going away from a dog. But I think there's a lot more complicated stuff moving behind the scenes, and I have felt from the beginning of this season that everything with the shopping centers and everything that's going on with Harkness and everything that happened with Dave, like it's all directly connected. This is only a 6-episode show. They do not have room to meander about in all these different places.
No, they don't. We're halfway through the season now, like it's really every episode has to be packed. And
Yeah.
that is something that this show typically does very well. Okay, let's talk about Claude, because he is somebody who
no.
we've been like, how is he first desk? Like we don't understand what is going on, but
Yeah.
he after getting screwed over by Diana,
Yeah.
he's not taking it sitting down. And I think that she's underestimated his resolve to not be dragged into shady dealings. He claims that his pitch to get First Desk was, I'm going to clean this organization up. We're not going to be doing these types of shady things anymore. And Diana was like, oh, no, 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 no. You absolutely are doing shady things. Look at you. You're part of the team. Business as usual. It was not surprising to see him turn around and be like, oh, no, no, me. No, 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 you. I'm going to go and, see this woman, Geety, that you were like, oh, don't worry. This idea is nothing. It's just a glitch. And be like, hey, do you want to do something just for me and only report to me? Find all the other glitches. I was like, oh no, look at you stepping up to the plate, Claude.
I am Claude's #1 hater. I hate this man. I want this man to have a horrible demise on this show.
Oh.
You do not get in between Diana Taverner and what she is trying to get done. She should be First Desk, not you.
Yes.
You suck. Okay, this is the thing here ultimately that Claude has to realize at some point. This is not a charity that you're running. A charity is an organization where everything should be above board and transparent and everybody should know where the money is going, all that. This is MI5.
This is the spy organization. It's a house made on lies.
If this wasn't a house made on lies, sure, you could do a great job running that. But I don't want to know where the money is going, when it comes to an organization like this. I just want to trust that they're doing the right thing. And these are businesses that operate based on secrets and deception. You do not want people knowing about everything that's going on behind the scenes. I hate what this guy is doing. I think this is going to end very, very badly for him. There is a reason why Diana has done the job that she has done successfully for as long as she has done it. And this dude just seems like a guy who's getting in the way and is going to make me very, very mad sooner rather than later.
The thing about it is that he's a bit of an unbelievable character that he would be First Desk.
Yeah.
And if he's been there as long as he is fully aware of what the inner workings of this place are and why they are what they are. Like, if you're part of MI5, you know that this is an organization that is a house of lies.
Yeah.
And it kind of has to be like you're a bunch of spies. Like, what are you going to do? You have to pretend to be other people. You have to pretend to have other lives to be able to get the information that you need. That's the job.
Yes.
So the idea where he's like, okay, I'm gonna clean up this organization. Okay, cool. But you still know what the organization is. You are an organization of spies, of lies and spies. So it feels really unbelievable to me that he wouldn't know about some of this stuff.
Well, that's why, to me, the only explanation that would make sense for all of this, and I don't know if the show's going here, is that he is just like a purely nepotism hire. That he's somebody who was brought in because he knows somebody else, he's friends with somebody.
But he would still know this stuff. Like, he's been there long enough. He should know what's happening.
He just sucks at his job, and not in the fun way. This is the thing with Slow Horses. There are a lot of people who suck at their jobs, but some of them suck at their jobs in a way that brings a smile to my face. Take your guy, because I'm sure not going to claim him, your guy Roddy, who in this episode...
You're getting some, maybe.
Okay, here's the thing, Roddy. This is the worst strategy I've ever heard when it comes to how to hit on somebody, let alone how to hit on somebody in a workplace.
Oh,
you try to flirt with them in this most awkward way while you're also in the process of working out, which nobody wants to be hit on in the gym. I'm just going to throw that out there right now. They are not there for that.
To be fair, his gym is at work.
Okay. True. Nobody also wants to be hit on while they're at work doing a spy operation. Also, after you pull all this stuff, which, obviously highly inappropriate, not exactly as though everybody else on the show is appropriate. So
Emma's also not appropriate. She said that some horrible things about Lamb's appearance as well. So, nobody's clean.
But then after she handcuffs him, he's like, I have a girlfriend anyway. It's like, that makes it better, right? So basically, you're saying you're willing to cheat on your girlfriend
God, he's so
with
grimy.
Emma, somebody from your job who is technically like this person in an important. He's such a grimy character, but I will
I
say
love him. He's so weird and
all of the
grimy.
stuff was pretty funny. It did really make me laugh, as inappropriate as it was.
That's the thing about it is, the this show is so fun, but you definitely have to have a suspension of disbelief for the idea that you would have a bunch of agents
Yeah,
that have either accidentally got people killed or are bad at their job or have other problems, that they wouldn't all be fired and that these liabilities would all still be working for MI5, just, not at the park. You guys are over here instead doing other
yeah,
things for us. It's absolutely unbelievable. So you have to have some sort of suspension of disbelief. Roddy, for me,
yeah.
I actually believe that it's like, okay, this guy's really good at his job.
Yes.
He's really special at his job, but he's also just so unbelievably difficult to work with that they can't even work with him and they can't even tap into how good he is at his job because of his attitude. Then I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, that seems like somebody that they would want to keep around because the only problem is his attitude. And if they can break through his attitude, they can get to all the good stuff. I mean, I think we've all kind of known people like that in life
Yeah.
where it's like, if you just like get through all the crap, there's like some good stuff in there, right? And Roddy is that guy.
Roddy is 100% that guy. And for the most part, I'm willing to overlook some of this with Slow Horses, with one notable exception within this episode.
Yeah.
Because,
Let's talk about JK.
yeah,
That's my beef at this point.
okay, I was willing to let even certain things with JK's,
He was your guy
he was
last
my
week.
guy, and I still find him really, really fascinating
Yeah.
because he's so quiet. He's a fellow balding man. I have kinship with the bald community on these sort of shows. But here's the thing: I kind of feel like after you hold something to somebody else's throat at your workplace, and you could potentially kill them at any given second, I kind of feel like there needs to be a
You're
okay,
fired.
yeah, you're fired. You're not doing this anymore. There are
No.
Yes, Roddy is a walking HR violation. Yes, a lot of other people on
They
this
all
show.
are.
Yeah, yeah, Marcus has clearly a very serious problem that he is
Yes.
not taking seriously enough. But there's a difference between all of that and then what JK does in this episode. And my heart goes out to him because what he's gone through sounds like
Yes.
it's horrible. But there also has to be a certain amount of like professional accountability here where you can't put somebody in a workplace that could, potentially
Hurt
kill
somebody.
yeah, potentially kill somebody else in just a matter of seconds just because of something that happens that they're not even aware of.
That's my biggest issue with this is that what JK's talked about that happened to him, and we
Yeah.
only got a little bit of it, but a little bit is enough to kind of get the whole picture of what happened to him.
Yeah.
MI5 would know what happened to him. If he was one of their spies over at the park, which he was, and he's now been put over here, they would know what happened to him. And it feels like they would have done their best to be able to get him some help and put him through some sort of rehabilitation, help program, anything to be able to help him get to the other side of it. The idea that they didn't do anything or they did something and it didn't help him to then put him in a workplace with other people knowing that something like this could happen, because to me they would absolutely know that something like this could happen, is unbelievable. I don't believe it. And the hardest thing I'm going to have going into this next episode when JK is not fired for doing this to Shirley is that it's just, okay, let me suspend disbelief that he went through all of this. He either did or didn't get any sort of help through it, and it didn't work. And so they were like, okay, we'll just put him over at Slough House, even
Yeah.
though we know that he hasn't gotten through this and that this could be a huge liability. And then he's almost going to kill Shirley, and it's going to be business as usual next episode. I just don't believe it.
I'm going to have a really hard time. The only way that they're going to be able to make this work for me is if they have some really, really specific explanation as to why JK is still around, why they need him.
He has to be so
Yeah.
valuable, and it has to come out next episode.
Like, is he like Chuck on the TV show? He's got like the government secrets just like in his brain and nobody can get it out. He has to have a really important purpose here. Otherwise, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. Like, I still find the character fascinating, but it is a big leap that they're asking us to take in the midst of all of this.
Okay, so David is in the wind.
Yes.
Uh-oh. So we had this whole scene where Louisa was going over to Standish's house to warn her that Lamb gave him up. And, you know, that's it. We know that they had definitely have problems between Lamb and David. So Lamb gave him up to be able to keep River safe for now. And Louisa went over there to try to help Standish because Standish doesn't have a phone anymore. So she's not answering it. But Standish is already ahead of the game. This is one of the reasons I really enjoy this character as much as I do. She's very underestimated, but she's extremely smart. So Lamb figured out where David was within a couple days, so she moved him. She was like, if Lamb can find him, anybody's going to find him. But she didn't have enough eyes to be on David. So she moved him to this apartment down below where she's cat sitting, and David just left.
This is a big problem because who's going to know where this guy is going to go at this point? And in order to find him, you're basically going to have to pull resources off everything else that you're going through. And that's a pretty big problem when you consider the end of this episode, where I had said in the episode 2 review that I was really, really worried that Marcus was going to end up getting Shirley killed because he's going so deep into all this problems that he's going into, his money, you know, he's off, you know, basically at a fence at a certain point in this episode. I thought with all the recklessness that he was going through, and they kind of were surprised by what went down in this final sequence. I really thought she was about to die, if I'm being totally honest.
Yeah, I still believe somebody on the team is going to die this season. I feel that the River fake out was to just calm the audience down, be like, okay, we had our fake out, we're good now, and then they're going to take somebody. This show really likes to pull the rug out.
I think they're going to have to, at this point, have Standish, whether officially or not, be out there searching for David, and that's going to be kind of her story in the next episode or two, because who else are you going to pull off to have that happen?
I think it's the team. So my biggest beef this season has been that everybody's too separated. We have Lamb doing what Lamb is doing, River is off in France doing what he's doing, and the crew is doing nothing. They're just Jake is sitting around tapping a desk. We got Hose working out. Like, nobody's really doing anything, and they don't have anything to do, which is kind of the point of Slough House, but not the point of Slow Horses, the show. They always end up having something to do. So I think now that David is in the wind, and that is such a huge liability, that Louisa and Standish are going to bring it back to Lamb, and Lamb is going to put the whole team on it to be like, okay, we need to find David, and we need to get him back, and we need to find out what he knows. So, like, team assemble.
I would be fine with that, especially with Louisa, because I think Louisa to me is the biggest example of what you're talking about, because she had a conversation with River in the first episode. She goes and sees Standish this time. She doesn't really have a story that's fully her own. So maybe this can be it. And at the same time, then Lamb can then really try to focus in on finding the man who got away after what was, to be frank, just a totally lit, like, final 3 minutes of this episode. Like, I know there are a lot of shows out there that have a lot bigger budgets than Slow Horses, and they're able to do all. Sometimes you don't need a huge budget. Sometimes you just need Jackson Lamb going at somebody in a car. You need people yelling at each other. Like, this gave me everything that I wanted.
Yeah, there's a show that got canceled a long time ago called Almost Human. You remember that show?
Yeah, vaguely.
Okay, so this show was sort of about, like, androids. It was like robots or whatever. This show had almost no budget, but the little bits that they did with it to be able to sort of show you who's an android and who's not, whatever, it was done so well that I believed everything. Like, a show does not need a big budget to make things feel intense or feel real, and Slow Horses does a really good job of doing a lot with nothing.
Yeah, and that's pretty much a microcosm of Slough House in general. So, I mean, moving forward, we got to see, how is River going to find his way back to Slough House? How is he going to tell them what he knows? And then can our little Avengers here assemble in order to take on Harkness and all of these other people while also trying to find David, because who knows where he is?
Yeah, Sam has got to give up some answers this next episode. I mean, I think a lot of us felt like Lamb was the other old
Yeah.
man that they were looking for. And for a lot of this episode, it felt like that too. And then all of a sudden, surprise, it's Sam, right?
Yeah.
And, Sam was, even though David wasn't out in France, Sam was, who is connected to David. So we need to know what's going on there. And I think this next episode, Sam has to give us some answers. We're halfway through the season.
Like, I know that Lamb wasn't the old man that was mentioned, but I'm still worried about Lamb at this point because he's been around. He's done some shady things for David in the past. Even if you don't know he's connected, it's just sort of like, he's kind of connected. Let's just go ahead and take him out while we're here. It's sort of like at a grocery store. While we're here, let's just pick up this box of candy so that we can eat it at home.
It sounds like last weekend for me.
Last weekend for a lot of us, let's be honest here. But I think it's just, there's a lot of reason for Lamb to be in danger. Like, I think this is probably the weakest episode of season 4 so far.
Easily.
But I think at the same time, I will say this is still my favorite season overall, just because it's so personal. And I think the arc is really, really interesting. And everything is set up to kind of careen in all these sort of crazy directions. The question just comes down to, okay, is it all going to connect? Is it all going to pay off? And can we be legitimately surprised about some stuff? Because, we've watched a lot of TV at this point. It's easy to be jaded and, hard to be surprised by.
That's the thing. Even a weaker episode of Slow Horses is still better than a lot of shows that are on TV.
It's very, very true. That's what we got here on season 4, episode 3. But be sure to hit that subscribe button. You guys don't want to miss any other coverage. It's Slow Horses, Only Murders in the Building, and From on MGM Plus. We're so excited to get into that. Also, support us further. Join our Patreon, $5 a month. You can help vote in polls. And also, we're covering The Penguin exclusively over there. Thank you so much to our patrons. We'll see you here next time.